Cécile, warm welcome to Startup Grind.
Hello, everyone. Good evening.
We're thrilled to have you here today.
Thank you. It's a pleasure as well.
It's going to be very interesting. It's an important topic. But as a start, could you give a brief introduction about yourself?
Yes, of course. I'm originally from France, but I've been living in Asia for the past 12 years, and including 7 years in Hong Kong. I was first in logistics, supply chain, and I traveled a lot for work around the world, working with Chinese suppliers as well. And 2 years ago, I opened my company, Ceicia.
And we're going to talk about problems that can occur in a workplace, common causes, and how you find the problems, and also what you can do to fix them. So let's start with the problems. What are some of the common problems that you have seen in your work? How does these issues manifest in different levels of organization?
Yeah, so most of the time I would say the main problem that can arise related to the harmony of a company is that if it's not well balanced at the workplace, you may have a loss of clients, deterioration of the internal but also external image of the company. I think external is very important to take into account because what's happened inside is also felt outside. So through the loss of talent as well, you can feel that there is a lack of harmony, and also this increase helps to decrease, I would say, the word helps is too kind, the productivity and the creativity. So this leads to loss of revenues as well. So there is four main things: the loss of client, deterioration of internal and external image, and the loss of talent, as well as decrease of productivity and creativity.
And we have places like Glassdoor where people do put comments about their employers.
It's quite a challenging time now because everything is transparent, but as well, it should be normal to be in a harmonized workplace and not toxic one, and work with people we are happy to work with.
Yeah, and the more managers who know about the transparency should also realize that it's best for them to have a good environment at the work.
Yeah, it's good for them, it's good for the company, and it's good for the clients. So we should definitely think about it more.
If you have the negative energy or the negative situation, in ballpark, how much money could a company potentially lose by creating a bad environment at work?
So if you take into consideration that a disengaged team or employee have their productivity is decreasing by 20%, it's already big. But then you have to add into this the cost of employee leaving. So you need to take into account how much does it cost to find a new employee, to train them, then to integrate them to the team. So through this time, if you take 6 months to find someone else, then for 6 months, you have no one to actually help you with a job. So on the top of it, if a transfer of knowledge was not done properly when the previous employee left, you still have more gaps afterward. So yeah, I think the big risk is that at the end, your company can disappear. Like, it's not simply like a loss of money. At the end of the day, like, all those dysfunction can really make your company having problematics on the long term.
Yeah, and probably before the person actually leaves, their productivity is going to go down for a while. So it's not just this end where the new person is going to come in. So you probably, it's a big issue. Now,
that's why it's good to anticipate it, to be a good observer about what's going on in the company.
Yeah. From your experience, what are the common causes of workplace disharmony in both small and large companies? And are there any unique challenges that these companies face due to size?
So most of the time, I would say there is four main factors: the communication, process, leadership, and toxic workplace, which is actually a taboo because it's not something easy to detect. It's like it's there, but not everyone felt it the same way. And I would say, depending on the size of company, those difficulties arise in a different way. Because, for example, if you're a small company and you have some communication and process issues, you have maybe one or two departments, it's easier to communicate and have this kind of band-aid in order to solve a problem with a client or another type of problem. But if you start to be a very large corporation and you have this kind of difficulties arising, you need to talk to much more parts and parties within the company. So if you cannot solve those issues at the beginning, then you will have them when you grow. So for example, let's say you are 5 people company. You cannot have the same process or the same way of working when you become a 30 people company, and the same when you grow to 100 or even more. So it's always important to analyze, okay, what are my process? What are the difficulties we have? And if we grow, how can we come up with that and find new solutions? Because it's the more you scale up, the more you need to question yourself on how to work on it.
Yeah, and large companies who are, I guess, fairly stable in their size, so hundreds and hundreds of employees, and then you have SMEs who are stable in their size. But we also hear that startup grind, and startups, of course, want to grow very fast, so they will transition from small to large. So what are the common, from your perspective, what are common dangers in a startup that you would typically not see in a more established company?
So I would say for the startups, as you mentioned, they want this fast growth that can lead to fast hiring. So maybe you don't hire the right person, or you hire quickly and then you allocate too much resources at once, which creates maybe later on a deficit. So for example, as well, I think most of the time the startup, they have those pillar employees who are there from the beginning. So they are kind of the essence of the company. They kind of build the culture, the vision. And if they are leaving, or some of them are leaving, it also can create a problematic, because the new joiner, they may not have the same vibe or the same passion for the startups and the growth of it. Then I would say as well, if there is a lack of process when you hire, or even when you work with the startups, you will have problems. And I will add as well, let's say suddenly the startups has a chance to close a big client. Sometimes you need also to balance. Is this big client actually positive for us? Because if you don't have the necessary resources as well, you can put yourself in trouble, because maybe you cannot deliver on time or the proper product or service. So this is also something you need to take into account. It's good to grow, but you need always to analyze the pro and the cons of the situation based on your actual potential.
Yeah, as you say, because I have the utmost respect for anything HR, anything related that it's a complex matter you have to handle. And I guess if you don't have the right person in that role, then it could be problems. Now, as you mentioned, like you have a team, it might split up and so on, but what can leaders do and look for to determine if there is harmony in the workplace? And are there any specific metrics or feedback mechanism that you find effective to find these problems?
So I would say there is three main ones that you can look at. Mainly, you can look at the employee turnover rate. It's like when you are sick, you take your fever, I would say. So you know if it's good or not. And if you have a high turnover rate, it's not always positive. Because if you look at it, it depends as well on the countries. For example, I know in Asia, the turnover rate is much higher than in Europe. It's a question of culture. However, if you have always the same turnover rate in the same team or in the same department, then maybe there is something to look at. You need to analyze what's going on. Also, I would say if suddenly you have some sudden dropping of results in your company, what's going on? Why was it good and then suddenly it's not as good? Is there like a problem in the environment outside of the company? Is it related to the economy, or is it related to something internal that we overlooked? So it's important to understand the core issues, because at the end of the day, this can also mean that there is a loss of clients. If you lose one client, it's problematic. But if you start, to lose 3, 4, 5 clients that were there for a long time, it's important to understand, is it coming from the service or the products? What are the problematics? Are they unhappy with what we sell, or are we not competitive anymore? So there is a lot of questions to wonder and analyze. And I would say, mainly it's the turnover of employee, sudden results, dropping results, and also the loss of clients.
Yeah, and keeping an eye on that part, the churn of clients. What other tools are there or strategies? I mean, can you do, or do you recommend to do surveys among the employees, and how often should you do surveys, etc., to keep an eye on what's going on, and also anonymous surveys? What's your experience with that?
So most of the time, yes, anonymous questionnaire is good, because people are sometimes afraid. If, for example, the culture or the vision and values of the company is not based on trust or safety of, discussing and giving feedback, then definitely the people won't have a meeting with their manager and openly say what's a problem. So in this case, it's better to do something anonymous, or you can have a third party coming for one-on-one meeting, but then at the end it's anonymous, but you can feel the vibe much more and go deeper to understand what are the root cause. You can also discuss with different layers of the companies, because what's the vision of a management, or I would say the board is different from the front line, back office, or also operation. Every department is different. Like, for example, if you take the sales of business dev, they can already feel what's going on with the clients, like, because they have a direct feedback and they can understand that it is based on dysfunction that are not solved on the long term. So they try to put those band-aids, but at the end of the day, it's not always enough. So everyone should be aware and understand at the different layers and the different departments how to work better. So it's very important that we realize companies are a supply chain on their own. So if you want to deliver the right service or the right product, you have to make sure that your own supply chain is actually smooth and working.
Yeah, I think, as you said, taking in, also bringing in that third party to help you, because I used to work for a big organization. I remember that I think unless there was like, I don't know, 5 persons per office replying, then they would aggregate the information together with others, because, as you said, so that nobody would feel that the information, you could detect who said what. But having that extra layer by a third party that says, okay, I'm not going to disclose the information, but I'm going to help the company to improve and to find out these problems.
Yeah, and the most important is actually to anticipate. It's not to wait that the fire alarm is there, because sometimes we are like, oh, it's okay, but there is deterioration. And it's better to always have this kind of mindset where you want to solve the problems before it gets too strong.
Yeah, as you said about the fire alarm. And I mean, what as a company grows, what changes should leaders keep an eye out for that can potentially disturb the harmony? So you have harmony, but then you have disharmony. So what changes could affect that, and how can these things be addressed proactively so you know ahead of time?
So, for example, if you have suddenly a change of behavior of one of your employees, you can start to question what's going on. You can also try to understand if there is increase of sick leaves or sudden drop of results of a team of a person. You have also those silent quitter that were actually people very outgoing, sometimes very proactive with their work, and suddenly they leave and no one understood why. And so what is important to understand is analyzing what has changed in the past weeks or months that can have impacted this harmony. Because if there is all those changes, there is definitely a cause and we need to find it. So it means having open communication without blame. It needs to be constructive communication and conversation to understand with empathy, because it's very important. If people feel safe in the environment, they can become more vulnerable, but in a positive way, because when you're vulnerable, it means you trust the other person, and it's how you can have a constructive feedback as well with your employee. And also what is important is not only to find out the problem, is actually to take actions. So then the employee feels like, okay, things are moving forward. It's not just the problem is there. We are like nice, we talk about it, but nothing changed. At the end of the day, the glass will keep filled in, and the people, they will be tired of, putting a lot of effort in their work if nothing changed. So it's very important, because a leader and a manager as well, there is a difference. Like, a manager is often a title, and sometimes you have not been trained to be a manager. And a manager should also empower to be a leader, because the leader is more about inspiring others. While a leader in a company can be someone with no title who has naturally understood how to inspire people. So it's important to understand that it's two different things to be a leader and a manager, but you can empower both of it. And both of them.
Yeah, to understand the difference. And which actually, when you say the leader and the title, kind of nicely segues into the next question, because I did my Swedish military service, and then you had a title, but you also, of course, needed to be a leader. And I learned about something called the FIRO theory, sort of how groups change. So kind of in the context of, because leadership has been around for many, many, many years. So in the context of leadership theory, can you sort of explain what typically happens in the group dynamics, and sort of there is a significant change? What to look out for? What can a leader or a manager look to when it comes to leadership theory?
Oh, yeah. So there is a lot, because it can come to communication biases, all the things that have been inputted into you based on your culture, where you grow up, your family. And actually, when you get out of the world, you realize, oh, maybe it's not the only truth. People around the world act act different or have different opinion. And also the dynamic of a group is important because, for example, today I can be a leader in a group, then the group slightly change. I'm not the leader anymore because it depends. It's quite natural as well. But what is important when you have a team that is stable and there is some changes like, let's say, merger and acquisition or the company is sold, it is essential to understand the roles and position of everyone in the team and what they can bring on the table, because we all have weaknesses but also strength. And it is important as well to emphasize that this is a teamwork. A company is all about working together, going into the same direction and being on the same boat. So if we want to accomplish things, we need to have the same goal, and everyone needs to feel safe to actually work toward the same goal and not be afraid, oh, maybe I will lose my position. And this is all about the work culture and value and how the leader and manager inspire the team and explain to everyone with emotional intelligence that they can actually be themselves as long as they are working as a teammate, because it's very key actually.
Yeah, and you mentioned there about that people realizes when you study and then you start to work in the world, that the world is different in different places. And today we have gig workers or people on Fiverr and Upwork who can be great team members, but how can using gig workers or remote teams affect the situation in a good or bad way? And what should you as a manager look out for if you have a remote team that it's maybe not on a sort of a legal sense employed by you, but they're actually working for you and they are located in a place? So what should you keep an eye out for in the gig economy?
So they are sometimes essential for certain role and some reasons. However, what is important is that they fit to the culture of a company, because it's not, you can be the best person, but if you don't have emotional intelligence, you can have the best IQ, you may not be able to actually blend with other people, and it can create distress among the team. And actually, as you mentioned, then the team can be scared as well to have those workers. So it is important that the stable team feel safe and understand what those workers can bring, that they understand as well how the team works, and that everyone is actually polite and respectful in the work process. So everyone should feel value. It's very important. No one should feel scared of losing their position during the process or losing something or don't feel good enough or something like that. Then it's important that the management explain clearly why they bring those workers in and how they will be beneficial to the team, and not just some other people here that we don't know what they really do and we never seen, and need to explain also clearly their roles so the staff can feel safe and not like they can be replaceable. It's really key. Actually, it's all about communication most of the time. How do you communicate?
Yeah, because that's how we know things are happening. I mean, and yeah, communication is, I'm just trying to think of when are we communicating by not telling, but we're always communicating. But yeah, doing stuff and not surprising people.
And there is also those things, the non-verbal, because for example, here I can see you, you can see me. So you can also feel a bit how I am with my voice and how I feel. But let's say you communicate only by email and you never talk to those gig workers. Then there is a problem, because depending how people type their email or learn their English, the tone can be dangerous, because you can create conflict without really thinking you are creating conflict. We all learn English from different backgrounds, so maybe we use as well our English differently, and we can be maybe we can offend someone without realizing. So that's why it's always important to have phone call and meet the people to clarify.
Yeah, email ping pong is not a good thing to do at table tennis. And we're going to come back and talk about AI a little bit later, but AI is also a way to make sure that, you know, could I offend somebody with this email? Now, when a company identifies problems sort of within the workplace, what are the first steps that you recommend they do to address the issue?
So we need to identify the core issues. What are they? Then you need to communicate about them and ask feedback to the different parties. And you need to take action together. So you determine clear steps. How do we solve it? mainly. And then you can assess later. Like usually you need to wait a little bit. You cannot just assess the next day. It takes time to recreate trust. But at the same time, it is important to be like, okay, we improved a bit, but it's still not there yet. We need to change. Still something wrong. It's important to always question yourself and recognize we were wrong. It's okay to be wrong.
Yeah, because you're trying to make something better.
Exactly.
And what strategies would you recommend for people to sort of get that harmony back? And what roles can the leadership, maybe first and second and third level of leadership, take? What different actions can they take to help to restore the harmony at the workplace?
So definitely without a leader who wants this harmony, it's very difficult to bring it back. It needs to be from them because they are the head and they need to lead with example. It's really key. So it's important to sensibilize the team with workshop trainings about management, emotional intelligence, or other topics. There is plenty of topics that can help as well the people, because sometimes you're just not aware of communication bias you may have or some things because you are all having different background. If you come from engineering, maybe you are very good at what you do, but maybe with the people you're not as good and you need to learn things. There is always things to learn. Then you need to be also aware of those issues and how to communicate them. It's all about bringing awareness, having those corrective action plan that you can create with the employees so they feel like on board with the change. It's like they are part of the change. If you come up just with solution and you're like, please do that now, sometimes the people may feel frustrated because maybe they know better how to change the problem because this is their department, this is the problematic they face every day, and so they may come up with smarter idea. So it's important to involve everyone in the change.
Yeah, and so you because you addressed now the problem and then getting everybody on board. And are there any good ongoing practices that you could add after, you had the problem, you solved the problem, now you have a period where you need to monitor this. What should the company do then to make sure that it doesn't fall back into the bad times?
So then it's all about the culture, the values you empower, also the attitude of the people. Sometimes, unfortunately, maybe there is one person in the team that is actually creating this toxic environment, and we need to face it. It's not always easy. It can be challenging, but it's just very important to be aware. It's like when you have an apple, if you have a worm inside, it will eat the house, So it can unfortunately happen in some situation that I had with some clients where unfortunately the person doesn't want to integrate to the value. And so at the end of the day, it's breaking the culture of trust, and the people naturally actually don't want to go toward those people. They will naturally create a group where, okay, we work with emotional intelligence, we want to feel vulnerable, have a trust in our colleagues, and that person who doesn't want to actually change, if she doesn't change at the end of the day, she will be excluded naturally from the group. So it's also a balance to have and to be aware. And it's all about open-mindedness and understanding. So I think it's important to be kind to others and understand we all have a past, some trauma and things that trigger you. It doesn't mean this person as an excuse, but at least it's important to discuss with them to understand better and find ways to work better together. At the end of the day, it's also recognize when you made a mistake or when you talk maybe badly to someone, go and talk to them because you need to ease the tension, because however this tension will only grow. It's like a snowball. If you don't cut the problem and discuss, it cannot go away.
No, that's a very good advice. Now, we've been talking about the inside of a company from the perspective of the employer and the employee, but also in the startup world, we also have investors who come in and want to invest or buy or so on. So investors and startups are closely related, but they also need to know what they are buying or investing in. So what should an investor look for in a company's culture to sort of gauge the potential for success? And are there any red flags that could indicate the problems that an investor should keep an eye out for?
Yes. Basically, I would say, for example, you buy a company, you need to look at the talent retention, the leadership style, communication style, the risk management, and the employee survey, because all those things gives the tone. So it's about also to understand how the two culture fitting, because you can buy the knowledge of a company. Usually merger and acquisition, the most important part is that you buy a company already know what to do in their field, so you can complete your own knowledge. But at the end of the day as well, when you merge, you need to have a great communication both sides, that everyone is supposed to be safe. But of course, if you buy out a company and you did not realize there is many underlying problems, sometimes corruption, or sometimes you may have some managers that are very in the waiting, they don't really act, and it's the team who is working hard, and at the end of the day you realize, oh la la, we need to do a lot of change among the management because they are actually not empowering their employee. And so it's all of this that needs to be looked at. Also, the high employee turnover rate that we discussed before is to be looked at. The type of a process in the company, are they smooth or not? How the problems are handled? Is it openly discussed, or is it hidden? And it's about the transparency. I will add all those ones.
Yeah. And when we talk about companies and investment, of course, at the moment, we're also talking a lot about AI and companies. Mm-hmm. And I think I heard maybe this 4 months ago that companies that are, we all look for the unicorns, but they said that companies had a higher valuation. AI companies with a higher valuation had less staff than other previous unicorns in fintech, etc. So that's quite interesting. So as AI moves more and more into workplaces, what should an eye out in regards to positive and negative impact on work harmony by AI being able to do a lot of the work, and how do you help your team to upskill?
Yeah, so AI is a challenging topic because it brings positivity. For example, as you mentioned before, you can check your mail and the tone of your mail before sending it. When it becomes a tool that enhances your work is okay. But if it's becoming a tool that at some point may replace how the people work and the reflection behind, then you may lose this taste of knowledge of a human being, because definitely AI is not always able to analyze a situation in the same way. Like, for example, maybe there is a lack of feeling still, and it is important. And for example, let's say you look at something, you have a feeling because you see the problematic. Maybe you cannot yet pinpoint the problem, but you can start to feel it, and by observing for 1 or 2 weeks, maybe you can find out. AI cannot. So you can ask the question, AI, what do you think the person is doing? Or I don't think it can solve the problem for real. So the people are a bit scared of AI. It's not my core business at all, but I tend to use it time to time. But I still prefer to first work on a topic to be more creative, because I feel like AI gives good keywords, but sometimes you lose your creativity behind.
No, I can agree with that. I use it also because if I write something and I want an opinion on it, I often use AI to give an opinion, so I don't have to sort of like, is this good or bad? And it says it's good, and you feel really good.
But then afterwards, maybe it's good for you, and AI will tell you it's not good. And then you're like, you question yourself. So sometimes of course, like based on how AI is fed, maybe some values may change as well, unconsciously. So maybe things we need to be careful about.
Yeah, no, I do appreciate when it says you could do something better or maybe different. So it's also just to be using it as a partner, a sidekick. But it's important for everybody to learn to use these tools.
And to keep questioning it.
To keep it, yeah. In the start, you mentioned you've been in Asia for a number of years. So can you tell us about some interesting cases that you've seen over the years that we can learn from?
Yeah, what is interesting is mostly when foreigners arrive in more local companies, the culture difference. That's true, I did not really mention it, but it's also when you acquire a new company. If you are, let's say, French, and you arrive with your French mindset to a company you acquire in China or Middle East or somewhere else, you have to be open-minded. Yeah, I think, like, for example, we function different. We all have our strength, but I remember like when I arrived the first time, I was in Shanghai, and I was asking my colleague to to do this thing for me because he was part of the operation, but it was not something common that we were doing. And after a few days, I came back to him and I'm like, oh, how is it going? And he was like, he didn't know what to say. And I realized actually he did not do it. And the problem is not he didn't want to, is that he had no idea how to do it. So one of the questions I learned to ask is when I was giving a task that was not common because we needed it in operation, I was like, do you know how to do it? And if he says no, then we work on it together to find a way. So it's always important. Some culture won't be able to really speak out that they don't know and they need help. So, but if you ask them, they will definitely tell you. So it's little things like that on approach that we need to be aware of. Or sometimes they also, some country, they really like to have, let's say you want them to do something, they need to have exactly all the steps how to get there. While some other countries, you will have 5 person, you will have 5 ways to get there. And it's okay.
Yeah, but the Earth is round, so you will get there eventually, just 5 different ways. No, but yeah, it's asking open questions to so that you get an answer that you can gauge, is this going to work out or not? I mean, all these experiences that you have from your time in Asia and the one we just talked about today, you package it together at your company, Ceicia. So maybe you can tell us a little bit more of what you do there and what clients you're working with.
Okay, yeah. So Ceicia came from the fact that I realized friends, colleagues, myself, sometimes we were very passionate when we started working. And then after a few months, we start to see and underline all the issues, and we cannot be at the top of the performance. The company is not ready to change it. Conflicts arise or dysfunction arise. It affects your results because at the end of the day, you spend so much time to solve issues that should not be there and you get frustrated. And I analyzed the whole thing. And at the end of the day, I found out that there is always a way to solve that. So it gives a better result to the company. So it's beneficial for the company and the management, but also for the employee because there is less frustration. It's smoother to work. And so Ceicia is all about actually to understand the dysfunction of company that lead people to quit. But the goal is to understand before they quit. So you can keep your talent, you can nurture them, they can upskill and stay with you. So you don't have all those programs of recruiting again a key person who left and you did not see it. And also help with training, workshops, and it's all bespoke solutions because it all depends on the company problematic. So all the workshops are tailor-made. And of course, you have things that are similar, but sometimes if this is a specific team with a specific problematic, you have to adapt to the culture of a team and to the approach. I work with different types of companies, medium size, some smaller size, or some much larger size. I think as well in terms of industry, often people ask me, it's quite wide. I have some luxury brands and also construction brands. So I think just it can apply to anyone because the goal is to work better together and every company needs that. And we are all people. So at the end of the day, it's the same mechanism.
Yeah, I think, as you said, we are all people, therefore all companies are slightly different and therefore bespoke solutions is what we need. We can just not have this cookie cutter approach that it works. Cécile, it's been incredible, insightful to have you here with us at Startup Grind today. I learned a lot.
Thank you for your question. I think they were also very insightful because it gives a good time frame, in order to analyze the situation as well.
Yeah, as our goal. I mean, it's also because it's so important when people spend so much time to build companies and then they might not see the problem and therefore they have a problem. So thank you so much for sharing your experience with us today.
Thank you.
And what I will do now is I will go and check in the chat.